Inflation is the rate at which prices increase across the economy. It helps explain why an American Big Mac cost less than $3 20 years ago, but is around $5 today.
Now, the traditional explanation is too much money chasing too few goods.
If a central bank prints too much money or makes it very easy to borrow money by keeping interest rates low, then prices will rise. Events like wars, which cause a shortage of goods, can also increase prices.
So a little bit of inflation doesn't really hurt anybody, but when inflation is high and volatile, and when it's unexpected, it can do a lot of damage to the way a capitalist system runs.
Borrowing and lending money becomes very difficult because you don't know how much you're going to get back. Businesses struggle to keep up with rising costs, and they may be forced to employ fewer people. And workers face a cost of living crisis. To avoid extremes of inflation, most central banks try and keep it at around 2%. To stop prices from rising, they can increase interest rates. But how exactly does that work?
He said that inflation happens when there's too much money chasing too few goods. And so how do we get to the point where there was too much money in the system chasing too few goods? And I think we all know the answer to that, and that is C19. During C19, the Fed printed a ton of money. They were just handing out checks to dead people, handing out checks to dogs. I mean, it was crazy. People taking out PPP loans. They have never owned a business in their day in their life. Their business was traveling and buying designer clothing. But it's funny that the example they gave about the rising cost of food, they used the Big Mac. And it's crazy because, listen, I don't eat fast food anymore. Big reason to that is just because of health reasons, but also the cost of a Big Mac meal, or just say a McDonald's meal in general, or a fast food meal in general, is the same cost as a healthier fast casual meal, like a Chipotle meal. Fast casual, healthier than fast food, and now they're pretty much comparable in price. So why am I going to go buy a Big Mac for $17 when I can buy a Chipotle bowl for, I don't know, $10?
How are y'all making it? No, literally, how are y'all making it? Because little backstory, I decided back in January that I was going to monetize on this app. Every dollar I made, no matter how big, how small, was going to go to a savings account, and that was going to be money for a down payment on our house. Because if you don't know, me, my husband, and our 2 kids are living with my parents. Spoiler alert, that's not happening. We're having to take that money I'm making and use it to get by until the next week, on top of my husband's income. My husband's making the most money he's ever made, and this is the brokest we've ever been. Make it make sense. I'm not a bougie bitch. I might get my lashes done, but my friends do my hair. I don't get my nails done. Like, I'm really not that high maintenance. We try to live within our means. We truly do. It's like no matter how much you don't go out to eat, no matter how much you don't spend money, you're still gonna be broke. Why? Because that is the world that we live in. So I know I'm not as educated as I should be when it comes to voting. All I know is that shit was a lot better 4 years ago. I could afford to breathe, and I had my own house. Right now, nobody can afford housing. Nobody can afford food. And if you can, congratulations, because you're far and few.
Okay, so we need more information here. Like, is she in a high cost of living area? How much is her household income? She mentions that her husband has made the most he's ever made in his life, but that could mean that he went from making $5 an hour to $10 an hour. Who knows? How much debt do they have? She gave a lot of examples about how she's made changes like not going out to eat. She doesn't get her nails done. Her friends do her hair. And by the way, shout out to her for all that. But those things aren't the major expenses that we all have to deal with. Now, she did mention a major expense, which is, of course, the cost of housing, or where we live at, which is the #1 expense we all have. So she's saying right now that she's living with her parents, with her kids and her husband. And listen, sometimes you got to stay down to get up. You know what I mean? So you got to sacrifice a little while to get where you need to be. Let's take a look at some of the comments people left on her video. Someone here writes, facts. I make roughly $4,800 a month and my wife makes $2,300 a month. And somehow when all the bills are paid, we have $20 to our name. Mind you, I have nothing fancy. Just basic items. So again, I'm curious, how much is their cost of living? Where do they live? Because combined, they're making, what is that? $7,200 a month. Now, I don't know if that's net or gross, but that's not anything to sneeze at. So I'm wondering if they're in a high cost of living area. Again, how much debt do they have? There's so much more that we need to know. Now, this comment is a little bit more concerning. This person says, we make $8,000 a month together. No kids. We own our small home. Now, when she says the own, I don't know if they mean they have a mortgage on it or if it's free and clear. I'm going to guess a mortgage. No car payments. We don't know how we're going to ever have kids or even take a vacation at this point. It's terrifying. So just based off of this limited information from this comment, it seems like they're doing okay. $8,000 a month combined. So they're both Again, I don't know if it's gross or net, but let's just say it's gross. That's 8 times 12 months. That's $96,000 a year. Divide that in half. Let's say they're making the same amount between the two of them. That's $48,000 a year each. And I think the median income in the US in 2022, according to Google, is $37,585. So combined, they're both making, or I should say individually, if you take it down the middle, they're both earning more than the median income in the US. So not bad. So this one is an interesting one. This person says, all my bills are on flex payments. My rent is split into 2 payments. My car payments on 3 payments. My light bill on extension. Laughing sweat face emoji. My husband is a stay-at-home dad because daycare is outrageous. Now, let me tell you something here. She is not wrong about daycare. Now, personally, I have no kids, but I do have a nephew, and my sister and her husband, man, let me tell you, I don't know how they do it, because the cost of daycare is astronomical. I think if there's like 3 areas that you should start a business in to make the most money, it's daycare, it's weddings, and anything involving pets. Because if there's anything people love, it's their pets. They will spend money on their pets. And in weddings, people get all emotional and, it's their big day. And so they just splurge and really don't think about the price. And then daycare is one of those things you kind of can't avoid in our economy, because now both people typically have to work. And now in this case, he's a stay-at-home dad. And that's just because probably what he would go make in the job market is probably less than what he is saving on daycare. So it's just wild.
Tell me how this cost me over $500 in 2024. Inflation is crazy.
So are we just going to ignore that big ass Lego set next to those eggs? I need to see a receipt, my good gentleman, because I'm a little bit skeptical that what you had on that countertop cost you over $500, unless of course the Lego set was half of it, because Legos aren't cheap. Not saying that groceries are cheap. Groceries are not cheap nowadays, but over $500 for that. Now, let's be honest. He also did buy some free range, cage free, happy-go-lucky eggs as well that probably cost about $700. Take a look at that egg pack that he has sitting on the counter. Those eggs are not inexpensive. Now, listen, I'm not saying that we should all buy low-quality food, but I mean, everything he had on that counter looked organic, which again is great. But if you're struggling, sometimes you got to go get value brand, right? And also, like I said, the Lego set, dude, how you going to include that in the grocery bill? Stop it.
It's official, guys. Walmart has removed the self-checkout counter from my store. Now, the only people who can use self-checkout is Walmart Plus members. Now, mind you, I'm the crazy one, right? This company that has hundreds of billions of dollars is now charging you a yearly fee to check out your own groceries. And now, as the lines are longest down the store, they're not going to pay more employees to work. They're not going to pay more to work. They're not going to give employees cash registers that work and are updated and efficient. Every time you try and work with a cashier, they're standing there trying to get the machine to work. And now you have to pay a yearly fee, and it's not even like it's cheap like Costco. It costs more than Costco.
If this is true, which I looked it up, and it is true in some locations, I think the reason that Walmart is doing this is mainly to reduce shrinkage. And actually, from a quick search online, I see that I typed in, why is Walmart charging for self-checkout? And it says here that Walmart is doing this primarily because of theft. Self-checkout theft rates are higher than traditional cashier checkouts. And some say people who shoplift may take advantage of lax oversight. I'm sure this happens a lot at night too. So a lot of times you're going to these places and they'll shut the self-checkout lanes down after a certain time because there are fewer people in the store, which makes it easier to fake scan your items. It also says that there are a lot of mistakes. Customer experience is poor with the self-checkouts. You scan something wrong or you scan something twice, and now you're looking around like a lost person trying to find someone to come help you delete your item because they don't let you do it yourself, because again, that increases the chance of theft. And again, it says also inventory shrink. So long story short, I think the main reason they're doing it is because they want to reduce theft. Now, the fact that they're charging a fee for it, that is crazy. That is nasty work. You're going to tell me, like she said, I'm coming to patronize your organization and you're going to charge me to buy your stuff? That's wild. That's crazy. This is unfortunate because if you really think about it, this is probably attributed to the rising cost of groceries. Theft is probably increasing because people just can't really afford to pay for groceries. And so they're now resorting to means like stealing, unfortunately, in order to get their needs met. If you can't afford eggs and, bread and milk and all the staples, how you gotta do what you gotta do. So I see it from the organization's perspective. Like they have to, yes, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, although Walmart is a very, they do a lot of loss leading and they work on very small margins, but nonetheless, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. And so they're trying to reduce their expenses because their expenses are increasing too. They have a supply chain for their goods. At the same time, their customers are being squeezed. And so it's a tough situation that we're all in right now. So there you have it, guys. Here's another video on just how bad it's getting with inflation and the cost of living and just life expenses in general. We're all going through it. It's painful right now. We all got to buckle down and hopefully things start to improve soon. But in the meantime, as always, if you found value in the video, entertainment, anything, just give me a like. Don't give me a like. If you like to give me a like, feel free to subscribe. And until next time, make smart financial decisions.